Hi, I'm Karen.
And I'm Deb, and we're answering your real estate questions with the same thoughtful advice that we would give our best friends. So, Karen, what's today's question?
Today's question is an inspection the same as an appraisal?
Last episode, we talked about some vocabulary words, and we thought we would kind of continue that trend. Last time, we focused more on some alphabet soup words, DTI and PITI, and then we threw in escrow for fun because that's such a fun word to say. Say it, escrow. It's fun. Right?
Yes.
This week, we're going to talk about a couple of terms, appraisal and inspection, which most people feel like they know, but we also hear people interchange them sometimes because it's just not something you do a lot. And so they kind of mix the words up.
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
So, and I think sometimes people think inspections have to do with the lender. Here's a hint, they don't. And appraisals have to do with the realtor. They don't really, a little bit. So we're going to kind of try and clear that up in as simplest terms as possible. So let's start with inspection. An inspection, I always say, you're not required to do an inspection. Your loans don't require an inspection. No real estate contract requires an inspection. I will judge you if you don't have an inspection. It's important to do. It does two things. It protects you from buying something that is going to come up with a massive problem that you can't afford to handle down the road. And it's also a great education about the home. A lot of home inspectors like you to attend the inspection, and you can kind of look over their shoulder and see how you change the furnace filter and how you could improve things, that sort of thing. But really what a home inspection is doing, they're a licensed home inspector who is educated, has certifications, continuing education, all that good stuff. And they are looking for what we call latent defects. Latent, another good vocabulary word you can impress your friends with, means something that's hidden or not super obvious. So for most of us, when we're going to look at houses, we're not going up in the attics. We're not going in the crawl spaces. We might take the crawl space cover off and peek in if it's not too muddy outside, but we don't really even know what we're looking for because we're not up on the building code and that kind of thing. So that's what a home inspector is doing. Now, Karen, how is an appraiser different?
So an appraisal is required when you are doing a loan. So if you are paying cash for a property, an appraisal is strictly if you want that for your own peace of mind or whatever, to make sure that you're, feel like you're getting a good deal for what you're paying for the home. But anytime you're doing a loan, an appraisal will be required by your lender. And the appraiser will go in. They are not a home inspector, but they are certified. They do have a license, and they do have guidelines that they are following as well. But what their biggest role is, as I would see it, we don't have an appraiser on the show today, but is their role is to evaluate comparable sales in and around the neighborhood of where the home you're buying. And I say comparable, usually it's within the last 3 to 6 months. They're looking at what did other houses sell for that are very similar to the one you're buying. They're trying to determine a value. And when they do go into the home, they aren't as thorough as a home inspector, like we mentioned, like getting into crawl spaces, getting into the attics, but they are peeking and peering into those spaces, looking for anything that kind of catches their eyes that could be a defect. But at the end of the day, they are looking for what is the fair market value of the home that someone's trying to buy.
So if we were to boil it down into really like one sentence or two sentences, an inspection protects the buyer from buying something that has a massive defect that would cost them a lot of money. And appraisal protects the buyer from overpaying for the house.
Yeah, it is also a safeguard for the lender as well, since they are loaning that money to buy it, and that's the collateral. So it's to help both buyer and lender in that case.
Right. Okay. So what are the similarities between an inspection and an appraisal?
Licensed. Both people have to be licensed.
Okay. They both walk through the house.
They do walk through the house.
Which,
yeah, go
let
ahead.
me say that some of these online value estimators, I don't want to use the one that starts with a Z, but y'all know what I'm talking about. they have not been through your house. So when they're saying what they think your house is worth, just keep that in mind. They've not, unless, I don't know, no one's ever knocked at my door from Zillow and said, hey, can I check out your house so that I can make sure that my Zestimate is correct? I know I said the word, but whatever. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. So appraisers and home inspectors will physically walk through your house. The other thing is that they're both licensed or certified to be doing the respective roles.
Okay.
Both benefit the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, if the ceiling is caving in, they're both going to point that out, but in different ways. The home inspector is going to say, hey, the ceiling's caving in. Here's what you might need to do to fix it, or here's who you should have evaluate it. Mm-hmm. An appraiser is going to go, ceiling's caving in. That impacts the value by X number of dollars.
Right. They'll also, and the appraiser, to kind of segue off of that, will also say, you may want to get, a contractor or a roofer in here or whoever. I don't know if we're talking like all the way high ceiling, but anyway, but then it could then open up an additional layer of, hey, we need to pause on this aspect of the loan and let's visit this caving in roof situation to see if this is something we can, work through or have to just halt the loan in its tracks.
But I use the example, the ceiling caving in, because that's super obvious. The appraiser's not going to differences. The appraiser isn't going to go around and check every single outlet. Mm-hmm. They are not going to physically full body go into the attic to the deep, darkest corner recesses and look at every single truss.
Right. And same in the crawl space too. An inspector would do that, and an appraiser might just stick their head down there and make sure that there's no standing water after a rainstorm or something.
And a home inspector doesn't care about value. So they could expect the worst home or the best home in, a rundown, dilapidated area. And they're not going to care that home is $300,000 and everything around it is $70,000. Like, the home inspector doesn't care, but an appraiser does care about that.
Right.
Can you clarify just real quick? Because one of the things that I hear a lot is with FHA loans and VA loans, there is a level of, I want to say, inspection. And this is where people get confused, because they say, well, I'm buying my house with an FHA or a VA loan, and that appraiser is going to do an inspection because they're going to look for condition issues with the house. And so I don't need to get a regular home inspection because the appraiser's got my back.
Right. So a lot of buyers will say exactly what you just said. They're calling it an inspection. But what that is on the lending side is that the appraiser is, there are additional standards that FHA or VA or any government-backed loan like USDA would require. So there are additional things that they are looking for to make sure that they meet those standards. And buyers do call it an inspection. But again, this is where we come in as the realtor and the lender to say it's not a true inspection. They are just saying, yes, this meets the minimum property standards of what that loan is requiring.
Did we talk about heads and shoulders? Knees and toes, head, shoulders, knees and toes.
We kind of talked about head and shoulders as far as about, the appraiser just kind of doing that. And when we say head and shoulders, we're like, hey, I think of the whack-a-mole. They're just like popping their head into
the attic.
Yep.
What do I see? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just think that's a really important term to kind of keep in mind, that, when you're looking for defects, you want someone full force going in. And, when you're looking at value, head and shoulders is usually enough. So
absolutely.
So appraisal, inspection, two different things. But let's talk about the bonus term that I wanted to introduce, because I do have people use this term incorrectly as well. They mix it up mostly with appraisal because it also starts with an A, and that's assessment. Yes. So in our world around here, we talk about property tax assessments. That's what the county deems your property worth for tax purposes. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be market value. So when we see market prices go up, we do see those assessments go up. They reassess every year, but it's not really market value. And if it's not, I had a client years ago call me when all the property tax assessments came out. And he said, Deb, I need to appeal my property tax assessment. So I need to appeal the value that the county says that my home is worth. And I said, why do you need to appeal it? And he said, well, it's much lower than what I think it's worth. And he thought that that was an issue because there's a feeling that these assessments are some number out there. Now, online property value calculators that start with the letter Z may use that assessed value as part of their determination when they do kind of square footage, which is usually wrong, and that kind of thing to try and to determine what that value is. It starts with a Z, but it's not a widely used, it's not a number. Honestly, when I list a house, I rarely even look at the assessed value because it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is what it's going to sell for.
Right.
What the market says is worth.
And I'll just add on the lending side, one of the only times I'm ever looking at the assessed value is if I have a buyer that's buying a property that either has additional Indiana property tax exemptions already on that property, or let's say it is currently a rental property. There's no tax deductions, no tax benefits for someone that's going to own that home as an owner occupied home where they can have their taxes, property taxes reduced. The only time I ever look at that assessed value is in those cases because, we're able to say, wait a minute. We know that this buyer is going to, live in this home as a primary residence. Their taxes are going to be different from what they currently are assessed at. So I need to know what that assessed value looks like right now and then kind of go off of an estimate there. But like you said, typically if that assessed value is under what you feel your property is valued at, fantastic, because you're paying lower rent. Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, but for
Absolutely.
now, just know assessment has to do with taxes. It's really nothing for the most part. 95% of the time, it's nothing that plays into the buying and selling of real estate on a day-to-day basis. And know that inspections and appraisals are both to protect you and the lender. We'll say that for Karen because she's the lender and she's here. But from my perspective, inspections and appraisals both protect you, but they are both different with different levels of expertise.
Yes.
So there you go.
You trust your best friends to give you good advice.
So consider us your best friends in real estate. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.